Почитувани гледачи, во денешната емисија на Македонско издание ќе ви ја прикажеме презентацијата на професор Кристина Крамер, наслована Креирање на азбуката на македонскиот јазик, одржана на 22 март 2026 година во Торонто. Ова беше организирано од страна на Канадското македонско друштво за наследство од истиот град и оваа интересна презентација го истражува едното од најмокните човечки пронајдувања, писмото, и како македонскиот јазик ја добил азбуката што ја знаеме денеска. Па да проследиме.
Hello everyone and welcome. Welcome to all of you, to each and every one of you here today. My name is Mary Outow. I have the honor of being the president of the Canadian Macedonian Heritage Society this year. On behalf of the entire board, I welcome you once more. Today's presentation evolved after the screening of the film Foreboding last November, which was presented by the Heritage Society in partnership with the Macedonian Film Festival. The film follows the life and work of Blaže Koneski, who was a professor, poet, and one of the codifiers of the Macedonian language. Today's presentation will pick up on that and tell us more about its history and how it was shaped. Now, I know that you all know our speaker, and dare I say we love our speaker, but allow me please to introduce her. Christina E. Kramer is a professor emerita of Slavic languages and linguistics at the University of Toronto. Throughout her career, she has combined her love for languages, linguistics, and literature. She is the author of many articles on Balkan linguistics and Macedonian grammar. Her translations from Macedonian have been awarded prizes and have also appeared in numerous journals. Two of the works that she is proudest of are the Macedonian grammar. Macedonian, a course for beginning and intermediate students, which was created for the Macedonian course that she taught over 30 years, together with the support of the Macedonian community here. And The Long Coming of the Fire, a bilingual Macedonian English edition of Aco Shopot's poetry. The talk today is entitled Creating an Alphabet for Macedonian, Not Quite as Easy as ABC. Please help me to welcome Macedonia's very good friend, Professor Emerita Christina Kramer.
Creating an alphabet for Macedonian, not quite as easy as ABC or ABV. So the main question that we're going to tackle today is, why does Macedonia's alphabet look the way it does? In answering that question, I want to bring you back to the decision-making processes made in the selection of the Macedonian alphabet to help you understand how alphabets function, the kinds of questions that arise in their creation and adaptation, and introduce you to the material record, that is, the written records that trace the issues that affected choices made among alternates in the 1940s in Macedonia. But to answer these questions, we're going to have to take a few interesting side trips into antiquity, linguistics, and unexpected pathways that bring us to the alphabet of today. Now, you're going to think this is kind of a crazy way to begin this talk, but the first question is, what is writing? Writing is a technology for making sound and meaning visible so that words and ideas can have a life beyond the moment of their speaking. Jill J. Stein, the director of the Oriental Institute in Chicago, introduced an exhibit on alphabets by saying, alphabets, this was the first true information revolution. By putting spoken language into material form, people could, for the first time, store and transmit it across time and space. So we must keep in mind that not only is writing and the creation of writing systems a technology, but they don't occur in a vacuum. They interact with different socio-political contexts, and writing also means reading cultural context, contact, and conflict. The way we write, the way we spell, all of that is influenced by history, religion, borders, and power. Now, each writing system has to take something as basic. Pictograms, like you see where that telephone is, that telephone and the fork and the knife and the cigarette. Pictograms depict a thing. What you see is what you get. You're driving down the highway, you see a telephone, you know, oh, there's a telephone. Cup of coffee, oh, a cup of coffee. Ideograms are a next level of abstraction. Ideograms, like the lower right-hand corner there, are where a symbol conveys an idea. Now we have a dog with a red circle and a slash. By convention, it expresses a whole idea, a concept. Dogs are not allowed here. Or, an even more abstract, a triangle, a yellow triangle with an exclamation point. We know that means beware, caution, take care. A syllabary begins to move into more like a writing system. And what you have over there in the upper right-hand corner is the Inuktitut syllabary, where each symbol combines a sound and a vowel sound. So in the Inuktitut syllabary, we go va, vi, vu, na, ni, nu, and the symbol rotates around to convey a different alphabet that connects with a consonant. We also have, and you've heard about, logographic writing, which is, for example, Chinese characters like you see over there on the left, where a written character expresses a word. So our top one is mountain and our lower one is river. Now, alphabets are a somewhat different kind of writing system. They take as their basic unit the individual sounds of a language. Nod, are you with me? Alphabets take individual sounds of a language. Because alphabets have a limited number of signs, they're both easy to use and they're easily adaptable. Therefore, most writing systems in the world today are alphabetic or syllabary. Now, each alphabet encodes sounds in different ways and with different degrees of accuracy. But the underlying principle of an alphabet remains: one sound, one letter. Now, obviously, it's not a perfect system. All we have to do is look at English, and the letter A is cap, cape, bother, about. There's different kinds of imperfections in the system, but for good or ill, we use a limited number of signs to write all the words of our language. Now, the story, we're about to get on our magic carpet, and we're going to go far, far away for a moment. Each alphabet encodes sounds in different ways and with different degrees of accuracy. The story of alphabetic writing takes us back in time, and it's the story of cultural exchange, trade, conquest, and human creativity. While there were many different stages in the development, two writing systems in particular serve as the direct ancestors of the alphabet as it is known in Macedonia, for example, in Cyrillic. Those are the Phoenician and the Greek. And for the Latin alphabet, we will also add Etruscan. Now, who were the Phoenicians? First, let's have a look at the Phoenician alphabet. The Phoenician alphabet developed somewhere between 1700 and 1500 BCE, and it had 22 characters. Now, some of these might look a little familiar to you. That M, that N, that T kind of flip. So these symbols are very, very old. The symbols, now what's significant for our perspective, if you look at this list of letters, you'll notice there are no vowels. The first letter of the alphabet was a sound like a glottal stop, like an no vowels. The symbols that the Phoenicians used had, over millennia, changed from pictographic writing to things, to symbols that represented sounds. So, for example, as I said, that first sound was the sound the second sound is b, the next sound is g, the next sound is d, beta, gamma, delta, b, g, d, Macedonia. That order goes all the way back to Phoenicia. Okay. Now, those letters originally came from pictures. And so the letter that is going to become our A, for reasons I'll explain shortly, was originally an ox. And that word began with a sound. It was an aleph. And that becomes a. And the next letter, that little thing over there that becomes our b, was a word bet, beta, and that bet was a floor plan of a house. G was the word for camel. So they gave words to the sounds, kind of like we go, A is for apple, B is for bear. I guess B is normally for ball, not bear, but whatever. In fact, our word, alphabet, are the first two letters of the Phoenician alphabet. So we are talking about this long tradition of humans passing this technology on. So how did the Phoenicians do it? Well, you'll never guess. The Phoenicians were conquerors and traders, and their writing system spread. And at some point, it was taken up by the Greeks. Now, there's not exact agreement when that happened, but we'll take the date something like 800 BC. Now, I'm going to pause. My husband said, don't pause for this, you don't have time, but it's so good I can't resist. That little map on the left shows you it's where Jordan is today, and the main city in Phoenicia. This is where the motherland was before they spread through conquest. The main city was a port town called Bilbos. Now, Bilbos was a port town that had a really important thing that they exported. They were famous for papyrus. And it is from the word papyrus, which became Bilbos, that important that you write the word jam and you don't have a J. What are you going to do? You might combine G and E and go jam, or you might go G-E, D-G, d-gam, or you might try D-Y-A-N, jam, but you're going to have to invent something because the symbol you need doesn't exist in the writing system. Now, this is what happened when the Greeks adopted the Phoenician alphabet. The Phoenicians are a Semitic language like Arabic and Hebrew, and they don't write typically vowel symbols because what they are a consonant-driven sound system with very few and predictable vowel sounds. But Greek is like English. It's really rich in vowel sounds. So Greek has to do something. Now, when Greek adopted the alphabet from the Phoenicians, they were innovative. They had all these vowel sounds. Phoenician has no vowels, so they adapted consonant sounds that they didn't need and turned those into the vowels. So that first letter, for aleph, they kept the order, they took the symbol, but they turned it into the sound a. How clever is that? Okay, so they kept the same order, so now in Greek we have alpha, beta, gamma, delta, which is the Phoenician order, and whenever they had to invent a new symbol, they shoved it at the end of the alphabet. Now, have you ever wondered why it gets a little fuzzy when you're trying to learn the Macedonian alphabet, and there's all that weird stuff at the back? It's because every time people developed a new symbol, it got shoved at the back. Now, this new alphabet, in a number of different but related versions, spread west to the Etruscans in what is now Italy. The origin of the Latin alphabet that we use begins with the establishment of permanent Greek settlements in what's now southern Italy in the 8th century BCE. Once introduced to those regions, the alphabet diffused rapidly to various peoples. Now, as Rex Wallace, a professor emeritus at University of Mass and University of Vermont, is a specialist on Etruscan, and he wrote, "It is almost never the case that the alphabet of one language is entirely suited to represent the sounds of another. As a result, during the initial stages of adaptation, adjustments may be made." Now, I hope you can tell we're setting the stage for Macedonian. But before we get there, let's take the name Tchaikovsky. Because why wouldn't we take Tchaikovsky? Some of us are playing the Tchaikovsky violin concerto. We love Tchaikovsky. His name is super easy. It's only 3 syllables. Well, look how Tchaikovsky is spelled across Europe in the Latin alphabet. We're all using the same letters, but we're doing different things with it depending on the way that our language has adapted these symbols. Sometimes it's by combining different sets of 2 letters. Sometimes it's using different, what are called diacritics. So a cedilla below the C or a hot check, a little hook above the C. And just because Tchaikovsky is Russian doesn't mean Cyrillic makes it any easier. I've given you 4 different Cyrillic versions down at the bottom, and they're all different. So alphabets is a technology that is adapted to the individual language that's using it. So, lucky us, this has now set the stage for Slavic in general and Macedonian in particular. So, let's pause a moment. We now see, to summarize, symbols get borrowed, they get reshuffled, they get adapted. And so we can see how a new alphabet like Cyrillic develops by following these same principles. Take the known symbols, modify them to fit your language, design new symbols for the sounds you're missing, shove them at the end of the alphabet, and then you get to translate your text with your new tool, your alphabet, that corresponds, we hope, as well as possible to the sound system of your language. We can see that alphabets are adaptive, but they do more than just provide a way to write language. The shapes themselves become carriers of cultural, religious, and later national identities. Some scripts were developed that became associated with certain religions, and those scripts become sacred scripts: Hebrew, Arabic, Latin, Greek, and for orthodoxy, various forms of Cyrillic, ultimately. So changing an alphabet has far-reaching consequences on perceptions of identity. The written form itself becomes imbued with something special, often something sacred, meaning. The story of the missionary work of Cyril and Methodius is likely known to most of you here. If not, we can take it up in the question period. Cyril and Methodius devised a new alphabet for translating texts into the Slavic vernacular in the 9th century. And the alphabet that they developed is likely derived through some form of Greek, and it's the Glagolitic. At this time, Slavic languages were becoming more distinct one from another, but a writing system could still be developed that would be used more broadly. Subsequent modifications along with the development of separate Slavic languages. As Christianity spread, a more simplified alphabet, also based on a kind of Greek script, was developed, likely by Cyril's students, Clement and Naum. And that is why I have Clement in a beautiful icon by our local painter on my wall, a gift from my Macedonian students who were tired of hearing me praising Clement's wonderful works. Now, before we flip from Glagolitic, I've given you a transcription. And I know for me, I never really learned to read Glagolitic. It's really hard. But you can see how it's related. If you look, for example, in the right-hand column, those middle 2, you can see that M looks kind of like M. I'm going to walk over so I'm not speaking. You can see M. And the letter right below is the F. And again, that looks like a letter you might recognize. The actually at the very top, if you use your imagination, you can imagine it kind of being pulled up and creating an A. So that's the Glagolitic. They come from related sources. How did I get here? Hold on a minute. Yes. So, this original Cyrillic underwent modifications in all the languages we currently use it. Macedonian was written in Cyrillic using various versions. There's also Macedonian texts in Greek, there's Macedonian texts in other Latin letters, but our interest here is Macedonian texts written in Cyrillic using various versions, as you can see here in these two 19th century texts. On the left there you have The Comfort of Sinners, Utesheni Greshnim, by Kirill Pechinovich, a book of teaching and prayers published in Salonika in 1840. And on the right you have Georgi Pulevsky's Rechnik o Tri Jezika, his Dictionary of Three Languages, which was published in Belgrade in 1875. Now, just for the record, the originals of these are held in the Thomas Fisher Rare Book Room at University of Toronto. With thanks to Horace Lunch for giving them to me to give to the library. But our story here is about the selection of the alphabet for the newly codified Macedonian language. So we can now get on our little carpets again and advance our time machine to the mid-20th century. Thank you for letting me begin with the Phoenicians. Macedonian was the last of the South Slavic languages to codify a standard written form. As a result, the form the Macedonian literary language took was formed in the cauldron of competing nationalisms, literary languages, shifting borders, and political alliances. The first half of the 20th century was a time, I don't need to tell you, of tremendous political change. The end of the Ottoman Empire, the partition of Macedonia, World War, Civil War, occupation, war again, more occupation. The codifiers of Macedonian were compelled to choose among options, each one loaded with the weight of national traditions, religious history, and competing alliances. It was taken for granted that the alphabet would be Cyrillic, but the particular form it would take was controversial given the variations in the forms employed in the neighboring countries. Now, before we start talking about which symbols they would choose, we're going to take a slight detour. Remember I said above, each alphabet encodes sounds in different ways and with different degrees of accuracy. A writing system has to have detail, but not all the detail. As we saw, we can read the letter A with different sounds. We can figure it out. But it's a good thing that there's a little bit of flexibility built in, because I know this is going to come as a shock to you. Language is not a rock. It is a living thing that grows and changes with a community of speakers that uses it. Language is constantly changing. Words travel through time and space. Each word has a different history. And so writing systems have to make choices what they're going to do about living in a world of change. How much do we want to lean into meaning, and how much do we want to lean into pronunciation?
Канадското македонско место во Торонто на своите станари им нуди угодно живеалиште, хармоничен живот и одлична услуга. Побарете ги на 416-755-9231.
Почитувани гледачи, тоа е се што подготвивме за ова 441 емисија на македонско издание, која исклучиво се емитува на YouTube. До нашата наредна средба ви благодарам за вашето ценито внимание, пријатно и довидување.